At my own retirement party, my daughter-in-law Sophia decided to make a spectacle of everyone, but mostly of me. "Bitter old woman," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You've always been jealous because my parents have money. My son, Derek, her husband." He just sat there, in complete silence. I didn't say a word back. I just smiled, because I was about to reveal a secret that would bring the entire room to a dead, frozen halt. "I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this, prove you're not like my son. Show some support. Like the video, subscribe right now, and tell me in the comments what city and state you're hearing my story of revenge from. I want to know just how far this has gone. That retirement party was supposed to be my night. After 37 grueling years as an accountant at Sterling Dunn, they'd thrown me this beautiful party at the Oak Brook Country Club. White tablecloths, fresh flowers, a cake with my name in elegant script. I should have been thrilled. Instead, I was just standing there, frozen, watching my son Derek do nothing while his wife Sophia called me a bitter old woman. "You're just bitter because my parents have money," Sophia's voice sliced through the chatter. Her perfectly manicured finger pointed at me like a dagger. Her designer dress shimmered under the crystal chandeliers as she added, "You've always been jealous of our lifestyle." The room went dead silent. My old co-workers, my neighbours from down the street, even the catering staff, everyone stopped to watch the show. I felt that hot burn of humiliation crawling up my neck. Then Sophia looked at my son, Derek, and said with a bored tone, "You're useless now. Better accept that and stop trying to get into our lives." Useless now. Those words bounced around in my skull. I looked at this 35-year-old man I raised completely on my own after his father, Robert, died in a construction accident when he was just 8 years old. The boy I worked double shifts for. The teenager I sent to a top private school, even if it meant I was eating ramen noodles for weeks on end. Sophia kept going, her voice getting chirpier with every insult. "The truth, Olivia, is it's embarrassing how you try to compete with us. We know you're struggling for money. Derek told me all about your tiny apartment, your old car. It's just sad, really." She turned to the guests like she was on a Broadway stage. "She insists on giving us money advice when she can barely pay her own bills. It's pathetic." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw the pity in their eyes. Mrs. Gable from next door even gave me a sad little nod, like I was some charity case she'd just read about. And right then, something inside me snapped. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, final click, like a steel door slamming shut forever. I took a deep breath, and a real smile spread across my face. The kind of smile you get when you're finally done pretending. "Sophia, honey," I said, my voice ringing out clear as a bell in the silent room. "Since you brought up money, I think it's time we talked about something." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, here we go. Another lecture on saving $2. Before you hear what I said next, I have to ask, have you ever been pushed to your absolute limit, where you know that what you're about to do will change everything forever? Hit that subscribe button right now if you believe it's time for me to fight back. If you think I should have just stayed quiet, go to the comments and tell me why you believe in keeping the peace, no matter the cost." I cut her off, still smiling. "Actually, I was thinking we could talk about the $2 million loan." The colour drained from her face so fast I thought she was going to faint. She literally stumbled, grabbing Derek's arm to stay upright. What are you talking about?" she stammered, her confidence gone. I turned to the crowd, just like she had. You see, a few years ago, Sophia's parents needed a rather large loan, $2 million to be exact. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "No," she gasped. "You can't." "Oh, I can, and I am," I said calmly. "The loan was made 3 years ago, very reasonable terms, 5% interest, to be paid off in 7 years. Of course, so far they've only covered about 6 months of payments." People weren't looking at me with pity anymore. They were staring with fascination, their heads turning from Sophia to me like they were at a tennis match. "That's impossible," she whispered, her voice cracking. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I brought up my banking app and showed the screen to the crowd. "Does anyone want to see the loan documentation? It's all completely legal." Derek's face was a pale mask of confusion. "Mom, what is this? How?" $2,437,612.18, I said, my voice perfectly clear. That's what your wife's parents owe me right now, including all the unpaid interest. Sophia made a choking sound. This has to be a mistake. You're an accountant. You live in that little apartment. You drive a 15-year-old Honda. Yes, I do, I said. But you know what they say about making assumptions, dear. The room was silent except for the smooth jazz still playing over the speakers. You see, I continued, my voice getting stronger, your parents, George and Margaret, came to me 3 years ago, completely desperate. Their string of car dealerships across Ohio and Michigan was going bankrupt. They'd been turned down by every bank. No, Sophia cried. My parents have money. They bought us our house. They paid for our wedding. With my money, I said, without a flicker of hesitation. Every single dollar your parents have spent in the last 3 years came from that loan. Derek sank into a chair, looking like he'd been punched. But you always said you were just getting by. I said I lived simply, I corrected him. I never said I was poor. Do you feel that? The shift in the room? The moment the victim becomes the victor? If this is the kind of story that gets your heart pounding, that makes you believe in karma, then you belong here. Subscribing takes 1 second, but it tells me you're not a silent bystander. You're on the side of justice. Sophia started breathing fast, looking for an escape. You're lying! You're making this up because you're a bitter, jealous woman. Do you want me to call your parents right now? I asked, pulling up their number. I'm sure they'd love to confirm the details. No! She screamed, then clapped a hand over her mouth. In a tiny, broken voice, she whispered, Please, please don't do this. But I was done. Done pleasing people who never respected me. Done being treated like a burden by the family I gave everything for. I looked at all the faces staring at me, now with awe and respect. Then I looked at my son, still slumped in his chair. Enjoy the rest of the party, I said, putting my phone away. I think I'm going to go home now. As I walked out, I felt lighter than I had in years. The valet pulled my 15-year-old Honda around, and as I drove away from that fancy country club, I couldn't stop smiling. Tomorrow, I thought, was going to be a very, very interesting day. The next morning, I woke up with a crystal clarity I hadn't felt in decades. The fog of hurt was gone, replaced by a razor-sharp focus. I made my coffee and started making calls. First, to my lawyer, Jessica Miller. Jessica, it's Olivia. We need to talk. It's about the Morales loan. Second, to my financial advisor, Mark Thompson. Mark, I need a full financial workup on every account linked to Derek. Loans, credit lines, investments, the whole 9 yards. The third call was the hardest. I dialed my son. Derek, I need you and Sophia at my apartment tonight. 7 p.m. It can't wait. I hung up before he could argue. That evening, they showed up looking like they'd been through a war. I didn't offer them drinks. I just handed Derek a folder. Here are the signed, notarized, legally binding loan documents between your wife's parents and me. His face went from skeptical to confused to horrified. This is real, he breathed. Very real, I said, and they haven't paid me a dime in 8 months. The current amount owed is over $2.6 million. Sophia whispered, How do you have that kind of money? I earned it, I said, looking her dead in the eye. While you thought I was some pathetic old woman, I was building a financial portfolio that makes your parents' car dealerships look like a lemonade stand. But why? Derek asked, his voice cracking. Why did you let us think you were struggling? Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have, I shot back. I wanted to know you valued me, not my bank account. What I'm about to tell you now is the most painful part of the entire story, the ultimate betrayal. It's a betrayal so deep, some of you might not even believe it. If you've ever been betrayed by family, subscribe to this channel right now. Let's create a community for people who understand this kind of pain, so no one has to feel alone. If you've been lucky enough to never feel this, go to the comments and share one thing you're grateful for. But here's the really interesting part, I said, my voice turning to ice. Today, I found out that not only have your parents been defaulting on their debt, but they've been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent to get the loan thrown out entirely. Sophia's mouth fell open. They filed inquiries with the probate court. They were setting the stage to argue I was mentally unfit, that it was impossible for me to have that kind of money. They wouldn't, Derek said, shaking his head in disbelief. Oh, they would, and they planned on doing it with your help, I said, sliding one last document across the table. It was from a private investigator, detailing conversations Derek had with his in-laws about my mental decline and erratic behavior with money. His face went white. I was just worried about you, he stammered. The pieces clicked into place. So when Sophia's parents needed a character witness to say I was incompetent, they were counting on you. He turned to me, his expression desperate. What happens now? I looked at the son who let his wife call me useless, and the daughter-in-law who schemed to strip me of my rights. Now, I said softly, you're both going to learn what it really costs to treat someone as disposable. The next morning, I started cutting the strings. First, I went to the bank and withdrew my personal guarantee on Derek's $1.2 million business line of credit. Without it, his credit was frozen. Second, I had my advisor contact the 3 biggest clients of Derek's consulting firm, clients that made up 60% of his revenue, clients I had personally sent his way, and inform them I would be taking over their accounts directly. Third, I met with Sophia's mother, Margaret. I laid out the demand for immediate payment of the full $2.6 million. She cried, she begged, she told me this would destroy them. I told her they should have thought of that before they plotted to destroy me. It took less than 72 hours for the frantic knocking to start at my door. It was Sophia, a complete wreck. Please, she sobbed, my parents are losing everything. Daniel's business is falling apart. We might lose our house. Tell me, Sophia, I said calmly. When you were planning to have me declared incompetent and take control of my life, did you think about what that would do to me? She had no answer. I closed the door in her face. An hour later, Derek arrived. Mom, you have to stop this, he pleaded. You're destroying innocent people. Innocent? I laughed. Where? Then he played his final card. She's pregnant, Mom. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. She's 8 weeks pregnant. We just found out. All this stress can't be good for the baby. A grandchild. A baby. An innocent life caught in the middle of this toxic mess. I stood there for a long time. Then I made him a deal. Full repayment of the loan. $2.6 million. Your in-laws will have to liquidate everything. Your business succeeds or fails on your own. No more help from me. And us? He asked, tears streaming down his face. What about our relationship? That, I said, is entirely up to you. Whether you can love and respect the real me, not the version you thought you could control. 6 months later, I was standing in the lobby of the Sun Tower, a skyscraper I now owned. My new firm, Mendoza Financial Consulting, took up the entire 15th floor. I was no longer hiding. I was a force, a legend in the financial world, as a Forbes journalist had called me. The Morales family went bankrupt. They lost everything. Derek's business struggled, but he was keeping it afloat on his own. They sold their big house and moved into a modest home in the suburbs. They had a baby girl, Emily. They sent a simple birth announcement in the mail. I stared at the photo of my granddaughter, my heart aching. Then, one night, the doorman called. Sophia was downstairs, with the baby. I let her up. She stood in my stunning new apartment, holding a tiny pink bundle. She looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a deep, weary humility. This is Emily, she said softly, your granddaughter. With trembling hands, I took the baby. She was so perfect. I owe you an apology, Sophia whispered, tears in her eyes. Not just for what I said, for everything. For the way I treated you. For convincing Derek to see you as a burden. I was spoiled, arrogant, and cruel. We took advantage of your love. We planned to take away your autonomy. We treated you like you were disposable. I held my granddaughter closer and felt something shift inside me. The anger, the hurt. It was still there, but so was love for this innocent child. I'm not ready to forgive, I said honestly, but I'm willing to consider the possibility that people can change. Baby steps, I warned. Supervised visits, family therapy, complete transparency. One more betrayal and it's over for good. Yes, she said immediately. Absolutely. As she was leaving, I stopped her. Tell Derek he can call me, not to make excuses, but to talk about Emily, about what comes next. After she left, I stood there holding a small blanket that smelled like baby powder. Freedom, I realized, wasn't about cutting people off. It was about choosing who to let back in, and on what terms. Tomorrow, my son would call. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I was finally, completely, authentically myself. And that was enough. That was everything. Now I have to turn the question to you. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have forgiven them for the sake of your grandchild? Or is some betrayal just too deep to ever come back from? Don't leave without telling me what you think. Your comment is the final chapter of this story. Subscribe, and thank you for being here until the very end.